Welcome to Martini Time, the happy time of the day. It's a very happy day for me because it's Monday and my wife goes to Rotary, so I go out and buy some fried chicken tonight. It doesn't take much to make me happy. Also tonight, I'm going to watch the second episode of Ken Burns' Vietnam. Watched it last night, or night before last. I guess it was the night before last. I lose track. Maybe it was last night. But what was interesting, it was Sunday night, okay. What was interesting about that was that before Ken Burns came on, I was watching Globe Trekker, and they put on it was called Tough Trains of Vietnam. And so their little trekker was taking a train all the way down through Vietnam. And of course, the whole show was about the war and what's happened to Vietnam since then and how it's become unified. And Saigon is now Ho Chi Minh City. And he talked to the generals and the soldiers, and they looked at the wreckage and the train, and they looked at the bridges and how the bombers would come and blow the bridge up, and during the night they would create a pontoon bridge and run the train across the pontoon bridge and then take it down during the day. And the bombers would come over and say, "Oh, no bridge." And it would come out at night. It's very resourceful. And they had tunnels the trains went through. And they would put the trains in the tunnel so the bombers couldn't find them. And, it was just a fascinating, particularly juxtaposed to the documentary on Vietnam. So you could see the wound in America, and you could see the healing in Vietnam. They seemed to be healed. And they fought for their liberty since, the French came there and took over the country, and they were colonized, and the French were, they're kind of brutal. They're kind of, and so they were exploiting the country. And so they fought the French, fought the Japanese, and then fought the Americans. And finally, they got their liberty. And they're one again. And I just thought it was very interesting. And you can look at that and think about us in Vietnam. Here again, it has kind of the same pattern where we have a proxy government, and we look upon the Afghanistan, we look upon the Afghans that are fighting the proxy government as terrorists. But this is why it's always kind of odd to me that we talk about Afghanistan, talk about the terrorists, Taliban. Well, they're Afghanis. So when in the Vietnam War, you were fighting the Viet Cong, and the American soldiers just hated them and shoot them and kill everything. But they were, Vietnamese. But they were named the Viet Cong. And so we got the Afghans who were named the Taliban, as to be exterminated. And our government put up, you see, and it's very familiar, very familiar. But anyway, the title of this talk is The Wound That Won't Heal. And I think Vietnam is one of those wounds. The Civil War is one too. It's ironic that there you had the South, like South Vietnam, invaded by the North, like the Yankees, the Federalists, and the North wanted to unify the country. And in Vietnam, you had the breakaway independent South Vietnam, and the North wanted to unify the country. How interesting. And the same with Korea. You had South Korea was the breakaway, we're going to be different and separate, we're going to have a new Korea. And you had the North Korea that wanted to unify the country. So the North, on all three occasions, wanted to restore oneness, to restore the people to their one nation, and not have two. Let there be one. And that is a powerful passion when it's triggered. The desire to be one. I mean, look what happens, when a stalker, somebody who is attracted to a woman and he wants to be one with her, and he becomes obsessed and he stalks her and she has to leave, take out a court order and everything. You can't make him break away. I want to be one with you. So that whole idea, I want to be one with you, is a very powerful life force. I mean, it's not just pleasure, it's a life force that takes its form in nations and in individuals. I want to be one with you. I want to restore unity. I want to not be alone. I want to be free from the pain of separation. So there we get into the wound again. Now this wound I've been writing about today is also in Christianity, is a very powerful part of the Christian mythology, or the Christian message, or the Christian imagery. I use metaphor, but then people say, well, Jesus is not a metaphor, he's real. See, metaphor doesn't mean it's not real. But the Middle Ages really understood the Christian imageries, of Jesus and Mary and the wound in the side of Christ, you see. That was a very important symbol. And it's the symbol of the wound that won't heal. It's the crucifixion. He was on the cross, and they stabbed him with a spear right in the side, you see. And in the Christian imagery, it's the vagina. It's the wound. It's bleeding. It's the wound. And Adam gave birth to Eve through that wound. So it's a lot connected with this, but I don't want to get too far from it. But I wanted to focus on the idea of the wound that won't heal. And when I was watching the Vietnam thing last night, I felt this. The angle, the lens of Ken Burns is so wide. A wide-angle lens expands you, because we look through the narrow focus, I only see that much, and you put on a wide angle and you see that much, you see. And so the documentary expanded me, and I began to feel this sorrow of America. I began to feel this suffering of America, this wound that won't heal. And even the Vietnam Memorial is a wound. It's open. So people go there for healing. They touch the name. They touch the name. It's kind of like that's what funerals are about, a healing. The open grave is a wound, and we heal it, you see. So this whole idea of how do you heal the wound that won't heal? This is in the Arthurian romances, in the quest for the Holy Grail. The Fisher King had a wound, a lance wound, that would not heal. But the only thing that would heal him would be the Grail Knight, whose pure heart would win the Grail. So, and in Indiana Jones, and I've mentioned this before, I'm sure. I know. So, but the question we're getting at, what is this pure heart that heals the wound that won't heal? What is that? Then I get into Eckhart Tolle. Now, if you ever read Eckhart Tolle, you're going to read about the pain body. And even in ACIM, they talk about the holy instant. And in Zen, and all these, in yoga, these non-dual traditions, Non-dualism is about healing the dualism of the wound. Dualism is a wound that won't heal. Dualism is two, and I want to be one. I want to be one with the world. And when I'm exiled or feel separate, I have a wound, I have a pain, I have an anxiety, I have a discomfort, I have an incompleteness. So I want to be one with my family, with the world, with my job, with myself. I want to be one. Usually most people only find oneness with their pet. The pets heal them because the pet has a pure heart. The pet doesn't judge. The pet has unconditional love. So maybe that's a clue. Unconditional love heals the wound that won't heal. Why does unconditional love heal the wound that won't heal? Because it doesn't condition you. It doesn't judge you. It accepts you as you are. Light and dark. Good intentions, bad intentions. Up, down, in, out. Black, white, red, yellow. Unconditioned means no conditions. No conditions, you see. So when you relate to a person without conditions, you are certainly their spiritual friend. Not in the sense that you're a spiritual person, but you're different from a worldly friend who has conditions. You see. So the unconditional relationship is a relationship that heals the wound from separation. So all wounds are the wound of separation. The division of Vietnam, the division of America in its civil war, the division of Korea. These are open wounds. Now, from the globe tracker, it looked like the Vietnamese had healed. I didn't see any animosity toward America. They weren't still pissed off. Well, they won, but I mean, they got what they wanted, and they had tremendous sacrifice. But the soldiers that they were interviewing were not bitter. It was just that. It was just this. You see, oh yes, we died. And then you look at Germany, had a wound, and they healed it. The wound was Nazism. And South Africa had a wound, apartheid, and they healed it. And each Germany and South Africa had a reconciliation. They created an unconditional space where all was forgiven, both sides. So this unconditional space heals the wound. Now in America we have a wound. And I don't know if it started in the Vietnamese War or the Civil War. But we have a wound of division. And it keeps morphing into new reenactments of the same wound. Whether it's the Civil War and the Confederates and the Union Army, or whether it's black and white, South against North, and now liberals against conservatism, that's a wound. You see, the other side is the Viet Cong, got to shoot them. You see, the other side is to be exterminated. As an evil upon the face of the earth. They shouldn't exist, you see. But it's our brother. It's the mirror reflection of me. So a wound is when you divide yourself into two mirrors, and you're looking at each other and you think you're opposites, but you're really one. And we get angry because we've got to be one, but we're two. And the longer I'm two, the angrier and the more violent I get. So all the violence in America comes from this wound. The split in our American mind, you see. The collective is a mind. America has a collective mind. Every culture has a collective mind. We're born into it. We identify with it. And if that culture is wounded, we take it into ourselves and we act out the wound unconsciously in our culture, not realizing why we're so angry at these other political people or racial people or religious people. You see, we don't, why am I so angry? They're not doing anything to me personally. See, so it's all acculturated drama about a wound that's unconscious. And everybody blames everybody else for the wound. That's why it can't heal. You can't find the cause. You can't find the source. Treat the symptoms. Treat the effects. And Buddhism is all about finding that wound and going to the source of it and not blaming external causes. Buddhism is basically, Zen particularly, is a psychology of healing the wound in whatever form it's in. It doesn't matter. The wound is the same. The separation, the initial separation of the split of the one self into two is a wound. And it's only healed when you can become one again, which includes the two halves, you see. Not leaving one, not getting rid of the other half. That's what we try to do. We'll become one again if I can get rid of all the conservatives. Or liberals. You see, so if you look at America from this idea of a wound, instead of just focusing on the content of the wound, put on the wide-angle lens, you can begin to feel compassion for the suffering of America. You can't feel compassion for the suffering of America, which is the suffering of both sides, not just one side, not just my side. They caused it, I'm suffering, I'm a victim, they did it. No, 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 not that, you see. Compassion is seeing the whole suffering of both sides. That's what compassion is. Feeling it as your own pain, the pain of the totality, the pain of the people divided against themselves, screaming and raging and shooting and yelling and demonstrating and running around, or dropping out and getting drunk and taking opiates and all of that, you see. Either way, it's pain. America's pain-ridden. The pain body of Eckhart Tolle is a collective pain body, as well as an individual pain body. And when we're born into a culture, or into a particular subculture, Judaism has a pain body, African Americans have a pain body, white Southerners have a pain body, pain bodies buried, and they come up to feed. And when they come up to feed, they feed on violence. They feed on violence. And the mistaken perception that the other person is causing my pain. And they're looking at you and say, no, you're causing my pain. No, 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 you see. The mirror reflection. The two, they can't become one. So Ken Burns' documentary is a great healing documentary. And it may not be very comfortable to watch. Pain isn't. That's why we don't go there. We don't visit our pain. And we have to make the pain conscious. And that's what all is. Racism, I don't know. There's no racism until Obama came around. Well, it was there. The pain was there. It just came to the surface. Why does it come to the surface? So we can make it conscious. If you make the unconscious conscious, it goes away. The pain is unconscious. That's why it's below the surface. But it controls us. We say, oh, the government's doing it. You know, somebody's controlling me. Well, it's your pain that's controlling you. It's your pain that's controlling us. And then we blame other people for it. You see, but it's my pain. I'm the one experiencing the pain. You can't cause me to pain if I don't choose to experience the pain. And then I choose to experience the pain if I misperceive the cause. If I misperceive and say you're causing the pain, well then sure. You know, I'll blame you. I'll try to get rid of you. Okay, well, anyway, that's enough for today. I'm going to watch episode 2 tonight, and I'm sure I'll talk about it tomorrow morning. So hang in there. Let's go look at some pain tonight.